friends, welcome back to the channel. So recently I finished Children of Chicago by Cynthia Pelayo, and I just wanted to quickly share my overall thoughts on this book. Of course, reading is subjective and these are my thoughts only. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. If you have finished this book though, let me know your thoughts down below and we can discuss it in the comment section. So this book is a retelling basically of the Pied Piper of Hamelin that takes place in modern day Chicago. So here we follow Detective Lauren Medina, and she is investigating the serial murders of local teenagers in the city of Chicago, and with each one of the murders it is tagged somewhere in the vicinity of the body with the tag of the Pied Piper. So they're trying to find out who is committing all of these murders. So besides learning about what's going on with the murders, we also follow Detective Medina outside of the investigation. She is a workaholic and she is also getting over the recent death of her father. And we learn that her sister was actually murdered when she was much younger, and her sister's murder kind of has the same MO as all of the serial murders that are happening in present day. So obviously in this story there's a big focus on the murder investigation that's going on as a central plot, but I found that the story was also really a love letter to the city of Chicago. You could tell that the author really did a lot of research into the history of the city and also into the history of fairy tales, and specifically the Pied Piper fairy tale, with obviously that being connected to the murders. And regarding characters, this is a really character-heavy book. I found that there were a whole lot of characters and there were multiple timelines. And so besides going into what's actually happening with the murders, like I said, we're also going into Lauren Medina's life, and you know, it's kind of following the situation with her father just dying, and then we have her father's partner, her ex-partner, her ex-husband, psychologists that are kind of involved in the case, other detectives that are involved in the case. So this is a really heavily characterized book, and like I said, there's also split timelines. So we're not only seeing the story through Detective Medina's eyes, we're also bouncing around to other characters as well. So having said all of that, for my overall thoughts on the book, I really enjoyed the aspect of, you know, following the actual serial murders. When it gets to the end, you know, this is kind of something that's been done several times before. I don't want to give anything away, but it's a very familiar kind of situation. But I thought the angle of using the Pied Piper and bringing old fairy tales into the story, I think was really interesting, and I really enjoyed that part of the plot. However, this book had long sections in between discussing aspects of the actual murder case. Like I said, there's a lot of history of the city of Chicago itself. So for example, if the detective is going to a specific church or a specific building, or she's in a specific area, it kind of goes off on a little bit of a tangent and will explain the entire history surrounding that area or the building that she's in. And for me, it kind of took me out of the central story a lot. I bought this book because I wanted it to be focused mostly on the crime and these serial murders going on where there's local teenagers dying, and absolutely that is the main part of the plot. But like I said, between the history of the city of Chicago, and then we had the history kind of fairy tales as well. Like I said, it would go off on kind of these long tangents in between, and I found myself just really wanting to get back to the story of the murders. And then besides this, it also, like I said, follows Detective Medina's life. So that was another thing that kind of went on a bit of a long tangent in between with all of these different characters and what she's like being a workaholic and what it's like being a detective. And I think it is pertinent information, but I just found that it took me out of the central plot a fair amount, and I was kind of getting a little bit frustrated because I just wanted to read about the crime. And then besides that, the character of Lauren Medina, I didn't really enjoy her very much. I kind of found her a little bit annoying at times. There was one specific incident that I was like, it just kind of turned me off. But having said that, I did enjoy kind of the author's angle on, you know, what it's like to be a cop and what it's like to be a detective. And there's one instance in the book where it's said that being a cop should be its own race. So there's black, white, and cop. And it's funny because I have a family member who's actually a homicide detective, and they're very much their own breed. And I'm not saying that in a negative light at all, but they're just their own kind of people. And that really came through in this, but I think it went a little bit too far, and then Medina came off as very standoffish. And like I said, there was one situation that kind of turned me off from her a little bit. But I think it was interesting that they had that aspect in there so people could understand what it's really like to be a homicide detective, basically. So Medina is obviously dealing with a lot. She's dealing with the death of her father. Her sister was murdered when she was young, and she's actually having some problems with PTSD. There's an instance that happens at the beginning of the book where, you know, she's kind of hallucinating. And so you can see aspects of, like I said, what it's like to be a police officer, and then what it's like to have this kind of tragedy happen within your own family. However, I think it went a little bit too far into that, and it kept taking me well out of the central plot. So with those two things that were happening, the history of Chicago and then going into Medina's life, I found there was a lot of fluff in here, and it could have been condensed. But that's just my personal take on it. The other thing that I found was with the differing timelines, I was a little bit confused at the beginning of some chapters because I wasn't really sure who we were seeing this from. The chapters didn't have any titles, so you know how when you read some books it'll have the person's name there, so you know that it's coming from their point of view, and this didn't have that. So I found myself a little bit confused, and like I said, it's very, very, very character centralized. And when there's that many points of view, it can kind of get a little bit confusing for sure. But again, that's my own just personal opinion. So overall, I really enjoyed the crime aspect of this book. I just wish that it had moved through that a little bit quicker, and it didn't delve so deeply into the history of Chicago. I think it's great that that was incorporated. It was just a little bit too much for me. So overall, I'm going to give this book 3 stars. Like I said, it was enjoyable. If there wasn't such long periods of time in between discussing the actual crime, which was the central plot, I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more. So again, leave me a comment down below if you've read this book and you want to chat about it. Let me know if you had the same kind of thoughts that I did, or if you really liked this book, or if you didn't like it. You guys know I love chatting with you. But until next time, stay spooky, guys. Bye.